Hey guys, Dr. Decks, welcome to our current build. Thanks for coming to our channel. We really appreciate it. If you like what you see, please don't forget to click that subscribe button, as 83% of you do not. All right, so we are getting down to the nitty gritty on this deck. I think the last time you were here, we were just getting ready to start on the railings of the curved staircase. So those have all been made, modified, curved, and I think you saw some of that, but they're actually installed now as well. So we'll take you over there and take a look at those. And we also have finished off the skirting on the staircase, which we have an access panel that we made. We just now are down to pretty much trim. So everything else, all the hard stuff's been in. Oh, also we have finished all of our post wraps. Our beam wrap is just about complete. I just have a little bit of trim left on that. All the post wraps are done. The top caps or the column wrap tops are done. All that stuff. So let's go take a look at those really quick and then I'll show you that railing. All right, so just like the rest of the deck, we took these 6x6 pressure treated posts and we wrapped them in TimberTech multi-width decking. Now, this was a challenge because these posts were really thick. Normally a 6x6 post is 5.5 by 5.5 inches, but these posts were 6 inches square up to 6.25, which doesn't leave us a lot of room to get these boards around the post. Very snug, lots of clamps, and I had to actually leave a little bit of reveal on these edges so I can maximize the amount of internal space there was inside the post. So now that that's done, we finished that, we Cortex those, and then we put a nice little column topper on there. You can see all of our fascia boards are up on the deck. The beam is wrapped. So there's a lot of nice detail right here that is just pleasant to look at. And it kind of coincides with the very top of the deck, which we also put some column wraps on as well. So now that that's all done, we can move on to something else. Two of these posts were about 2 feet deep in the ground. So we pulled away all the dirt, we wrapped them in waterproof membrane tape, and then we put the post wrap all the way down to the concrete, and then we filled the holes full of gravel instead of dirt so that it has really good drainage and that the moisture is gonna have a really hard time getting to the post, especially because it's wrapped. And then I also taped the seams. Anything that's underneath the ground, I taped this seam right here so that water can't penetrate through there and get to the post. So since these posts hold up the roof of the house for about 8 feet, we decided we better do something substantial so that we don't have any future issues of dry rot and having these posts maybe decay to the point where they'd have to be replaced, which would be terrible. We don't want that. So that's good. We're good to go there. Let's take a look at these stairs. All right, so the staircase is complete. All the materials that we bent up last week, I was able to cut in. That's very time consuming. It took me 6 hours to cut the bottom support rail, the top support rail, and the bottom rail. And then we assembled all the rail parts, installed those, and then we had to spend another about 6 hours cutting in all the top rails. The reason it takes so long is because it takes multiple cuts. You just don't get it right on your first cut. If you do, then you're a grandmaster of curved stairs. Me personally, I've only done about 5 or 6 of these, so I'm still learning. It takes a minute, and I'd rather just take my time and try to avoid as many mistakes as possible. You know, several trips up and down the staircase. I had a chop saw set right here, so I didn't have to walk that extra 30 feet every time I need to make a cut. Because I'd say on this particular staircase, with all the risers, all the treads, all the railing, I have thousands of cuts to put this together. But I think it turned out really nice. We have our in-light stair lights installed as well, so that'll give it a really nice ambiance, and it's a safety feature at night so the clients can really see the highlighted area of where to step. And all that's buttoned up, so all the top caps are on, everything's finished here. So let's go take a look at that skirting detail on the back of the deck. And also you can get a nice view of the trim set on the deck, the fascia and the post wraps and the column caps. Everything flows really nice. There's like 5 different layers here. I like creating depth and layers in my work because it just gives it a nice shadow line when the sun hits it a certain way and just gives it a really nice effect. So the fascia and the beam wrap kind of look like a really large fascia detail. I think it just turned out really sweet the way it looks. I hope you guys enjoy it as well. Most of it's Cortex, and then anywhere we use thinner fascia, like 1/2 inch fascia where you couldn't use a Cortex screw, we used 15 gauge pass load finish nails and a cordless gun to install those, so that you don't really notice those finish nails as much. I used to use all stainless steel screws, and those are great, but they're very noticeable, even if they're color matched. So this time I thought, you know what, let's use the finish gun, and we'll put nails every 12 inches. And that's what I did. And from here, you can't even see them. You can barely see them if you're looking for them, but the screws definitely pop out a lot more. So I like the way that turned out as well. I think that's all buttoned up. So let's go take a look at that skirt on the back side of the staircase. I think you guys have already seen the sides, the curved sides, but let's take a look at the back. All right, so here's the back side of the staircase. It's completely enclosed. I have had about 50 people comment, why didn't you leave a door or a gate in here for storage? Well, for one, it's gonna be soaking wet in here. It's not a dry staircase. It's gonna get wet. Second thing, these clients have 1,000 square feet of storage space in this house already in underneath the house with doors that we've been actually using to store all of our tools in. They said we don't need any more storage. So the only thing I did was I created an access panel right here that can be removed in case we ever have to get in here to change a light or anything else. This panel can be popped out and you can gain access into this area for that reason, for maintenance, for lighting, for if somebody drops something through the deck boards, you know, $100 bill maybe or whatever, you can get through right here. It's tight, but it's doable. We went ahead and left that access for that. But besides that, we're pretty much done except for some trim. Let's go talk about that. Okay, so what we have left to do now is basically just our base trim of our skirting for around the staircase. And then we also have a little bit of trim to put right here because this multi-width board wouldn't quite cover the bottom of this rise. If it did, I wouldn't worry about it. But since these are open, I'm gonna add another layer, a thinner layer of trim and just finish nail it up. It'll go really quick, but I think it'll be a really nice look. So we're gonna start right now with the base trim, get that done, and then we'll work this trim out, and then we're pretty much done with this deck project. And now let's get to work. All right, so this trim board is great. It looks nice, but it only comes 12 feet long. So obviously I had to put a seam somewhere. I prefer not to put the seam over here in the corner where it's super visible. So I'm gonna put the seam right here where it's not so noticeable, but I can't just keep cutting like, oh, let's say I want to put the seam back here and I just lost 2 feet of trim. The trim, I'm spending $120 for a 12-foot piece of 1x12, and I'm cutting 2 3.5-inch strips out of it, and then I'm just saving the balance of it for the future for other purposes. So it's kind of an investment. A lot of people won't go to that expense. The reason I'm only using 2 pieces is because I want a factory edge. I want a factory edge so it looks like this piece of trim was made for this section. I've gone to the extent of actually painting all these edges before when I was in a pinch and I needed to trim something out that wasn't as noticeable or in a space like that. I might consider doing something like that if I had to put a piece of trim upside down in here and you're only going to see that color maybe towards the top of the staircase. I might consider painting that edge instead of using a factory edge. But if I have enough trim for a project, I'm going to use a factory edge being exposed every time. And then I'm going to have a little 12-inch or 14-inch piece of material right here that will coincide with the rest of this staircase. But unfortunately, the board wasn't long enough to make it all the way. So you're going to have to put a seam somewhere. You got to come to grips with that. It's not always candy and nuts kind of thing when you're doing this. You have to make compromises and realize, okay, I got to put a seam in it somewhere. Where should I put that? So that's kind of why we're doing it right here. There's still, actually, I can still hook up the transformer, which is probably good content. But I also thought, you know, don't take this the wrong way, but I hate wind chimes. I absolutely hate them. And it's bugging me. Sorry. We focused so much on the staircase, but I don't know if we really came up and explained the upper deck to you as well. This was a complete remodel. So we tore up, it was an old Trex deck, 2x6 Trex, which was really heavy, and it was all screwed down and half the screw strip because they were Phillips screws. And we got all that off, and then we smoothed out the tops of the joists. We G-taped everything, put joist protection tape on it, so that not only that the holes that were in there are existing, plus the new holes we put in were all protected. Even though it's undercover, weather still comes in here and gets the joist wet. We also wrapped all the posts up here, and we put a column cap on those as well. The client came to us mid-construction. We were just getting started on tearing the deck apart, and they came to us and said, we want you to rewrap all the posts and the lower beam. I was like, okay. That's why so much detail went into all that. And so once the deck was stripped, we installed new AZEK dark hickory. This entire job is all dark hickory, all one color. We just had another client come over and look at this deck and decide that's what we want as well. So our next job is gonna be all dark hickory. We did all matching TimberTech railing with metal balusters. Obviously we did the heat bending for the staircase. So a couple unique things about this deck. Usually you either got to run a deck in a random pattern where you're just staggering all your joints. That's not great. When you're trying to seam 2 boards over the top of one joist, you're putting 4 screws in a really tight location and trying to make sure you're putting them all in angles, trying to make sure they all go into that joist. It's really hard on the frame. It's kind of bad for the decking too, because you're only screwing in maybe 3/4 to 1 inch back. If you're 1 inch back, you're putting it on an angle and trying to make sure you hit the joist. So instead of doing that, we like to run a break in the deck. So we did a double break, which means we have decking coming 20 feet, and then we break the deck right here, and then the next section is like 15 feet. It just worked out naturally for the best to break these boards right here. These 2 boards I'm standing on are the exact same color as the rest of the deck. They just look like a different color because the light's refracting differently on these 2 boards compared to all these boards going this way. So I had a lot of comments, not on YouTube, actually on our Instagram page, about how much of a clown I was because I was doing a time lapse and I had all these boards running just up to a certain point, and they're all staggered. Nothing was cut, nothing was finished. And I had people calling me a clown, an amateur, making jokes about me because they didn't realize what was gonna happen as the end result. So if any of you guys are watching this because I blocked you on Instagram, here you go. I hope you really enjoyed this build. We've been here for almost 10 weeks. And it's a labor of love for us. We love building decks. We love making videos about it and putting it up on our channel. So you guys, if you really got something out of this video, please hit the subscribe button. We really want you to follow along on our journey and learn a little bit about what I do and how I do it. If you like this video, like it. And leave a comment below and let me know what you thought of this entire project. We're actually done. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.